Hello, hello, my brothers. It's so good to be here with you guys.
You too, bro.
So from left to right, I have my brother Andrew, my brother Chris Gordert, and a newly found brother, my brother T here.
Yes, sir.
And you guys already know me, Reginald Thompson. This has been a long time coming because Chris, this is something that you talked about quite a while ago. And you know the number one thing, T, that he mentioned about you that I really appreciated was your character.
Oh, amazing,
he just
bro.
continuously touched on it. Could you tell us a little bit about how this relationship started? I kind of want to dig back before we go forward.
Yeah, I mean, how long has it been? Almost a year, 2 years now?
I think like 2,000 years, bro, deep down, but I don't know.
So, like, with me, the way that I am, it's like I can know you for 20 years or I can know you for a month. For me, it's all about alignment, right? So, like, when me and Torrie linked up, it was like, just felt right, you know?
Yeah.
Like, when you feel like you've known people for, like, forever. And then, so from that moment, it's like you put people around you that either are at your vibration, above your vibration, that keep you climbing for where you want to be. And Torrie was just one of those guys that immediately, like when we first just linked up, it just felt right.
Yeah, 100%.
And then the conversations were so potent in terms of like healing and like, you know, becoming the person that you want to become. And I was like, man, this is exactly the type of person I asked God for in that time, because I needed that extra push, or, you know, that support system that when you kind of start faltering, you start like almost not so much tripping or failing, but then you feel like you just need a catalyst to bring you to where you know you need to be. And sometimes God puts those people in your life, and then we ping off each other. I call it pinging. Like, so if like I'm on a vibe and I'm pinging on some ideas and I'm like wanting to talk about this certain stuff, then he starts pinging off me. And then like how we are too, those ideas just start coming to fruition, and you're like, oh, this is exactly what I need to talk about. And this is exactly what we need to talk about on camera, because that's what we talked about, is like, these are the conversations that people need to hear, right? People need to know about these healing modalities. They need to know how to like really transform their life to the point that they want to become, but they just don't know how to get there a lot of times. And then so people that have been around the block a lot, because we knew each other, he knew of me from Strength Cartel and being an OC. And so we linked up, we had so much in common. I mean, I lived like 5 miles down the street up the freeway at Oso Parkway. So like us having that commonality too, but even though I was in San Diego, it would just felt right. You know what I mean?
Now tell me something, because I really do want to move forward. I really do want to talk about some of the amazing things you guys are doing, but I feel like we'd be doing a disservice to the people who are listening if we don't touch on this. How do you identify a good energy to be around?
I can tell you that right now. I mean, you're going to either affect people positively or infect them negatively.
Love it.
And that's where I love the fact that Chris is one of those guys who he affects people in a positive way, right? Like he's adding on to that armor. You carry it, you feel it, you know it's there. Or you could infect someone negatively where you feel that and you have to carry that too. And this is why I feel like it's positive to be around men who just want to take care of each other in a really healthy, balanced way. You know what I mean? Because that's when you know you have a tribe. And a tribe, you know, we can get through a lot together, you know? So, yeah.
Yeah, and I often see in today's age, you know, you start to notice it with a couple of groups. We won't name anybody, but for a while there, it seemed as though it was almost demasculine to be around other brothers. And now it seems like that's starting to come back full circle with individuals like yourselves. Like we realized not only is there strength in numbers, but there's a true humility in recognizing that I could learn from individuals who are a high frequency, high vibration is something you've always talked about. And it's something that I actually had to step into as well. Like being around each and every one of you, you're 26 now.
Young buck.
It's wild how much I've learned from a 26-year-old being older than him. And it's like, where's the humility? You have to be able to embrace that. It was easy with you because you have such a confidence about you, right? And I can even feel it, like the aura of him. I'm like, oh, I would follow this dude into a war right now. But it's something that if you haven't embraced within yourself, if you haven't done the self-reflection, it's very hard to do. For yourself as a natural leader, do you ever run across situations in which individuals come into your life and they don't quite follow along that path and you have to let them go?
Yeah, I had to be more in tune with the universe and knowing that they'll bring what I need at the time, but will also let go of the things I don't need currently. I had a real bad attachment issue, so like just diving deeper in unpacking of, you know, abandonment issues, right? Like my dad not being there for certain things, mom not being there for certain things. So I used to hold on to things that weren't for me anymore because I hated being abandoned. So then me unpacking all that stuff, trying to become a better human being through my meditation and then understand the way I am that I am, I became better at letting the universe let people come in my life, let them go as they go. And I think a lot of the Steve Harvey stuff that he talks about that. Seasons, what's his name? Tyler Perry. I remember he has a saying when he was in character, when he's talking about letting people go in those moments. And we talked about it with the rocket. When it gets out of the atmosphere, those boosters fall off so that you can get to a different altitude. I think that's exactly what life does for you. And if you're not leaving people's presence and feeling energized and you feel drained when you leave, it's a huge indicator that those people really aren't for you and they're energy suckers. I learned how to find energy propellers or energy catalysts so that I can get my energy and then bring it to the next level. I started learning and feeling how people are when they want you around because you offer something to their energy and then you feel drained after you leave them. I think that's one thing that I had to learn being an adult, and then being successful, watching how other people that are successful maneuver. Then I was like, okay, let me take notes, because obviously they're doing something right. They're putting really good people around them. These people have moral compasses, and they just have boundaries that they just don't cross. And then when I was messing with people that weren't like that, there was boundaries that they would cross, or they would say they wouldn't cross, and I would watch them cross, and then it would just, to me, just showed what kind of character and morality they had. And that, to me, is very low vibrational. Like, to make a promise or to make boundaries for yourself and to others or your friends, and then you constantly breaking those boundaries, to me, that brings down your vibration so much that you become an energy sucker.
Yeah, which really adds to what T was saying, because I think there's a really profound lesson if you take a look at what you said. Individuals who add versus individuals who subtract. And I think there's a direct correlation or even a parallel with the push and pull of life. I often refer to life as input and output, but another way to look at it in a slightly different facet is that certain things gravitate towards you, which is something you've always taught me, and certain things, unfortunately, will push towards you. And you have to be able to recognize the difference between the two. Is there any lens or is there any thought process that goes through your mind when individuals try to, I don't want to say infiltrate because that might be too strong of a word, but when individuals come into your space and you may need to reset?
I mean, for me, no. Like, I've had to reset every day. Every day when I wake up, I'm resetting. I'm taking that morning, I'm taking that day to become the best version of myself, to be ready to help and serve. This is why we're here, in my opinion. Like, I don't believe I'm just waking up without a purpose. I'm here to help as many people as I can. But, your mess is your message. Like, you have to clean yourself up. And I'm here to help. But if you're not helping me, I'm going to give you love, not take anything personally, and move forward. Because that's what we need to do, is move forward. And sometimes that's the message in itself. You literally give someone the love by leaving. And you teach them the hardest lesson, which is, I love you, but I have to keep going. And in itself, that is just the ticket. I mean, I've had a lot of people give me love unconditionally. I have a great mother, father. I still have good connection with them every day, but I've never been more in tune than when I've fallen the hardest and learned that if I don't pick myself up, that I'm going to leave myself behind in a way that I don't deserve, So it's deep like that. Like, you have to pick yourself up, or no one else is going to do it for you, and we have to represent that as a unity and individuals, that we are here to all pick each other up. And if you don't pick me up, then I love you enough to let you know, but you're going to feel you're leaving yourself behind. Right? Does that make sense?
So I looked at it. So I'm someone that has always tried to look at myself as very selfless. So I've always tried to take care of whoever was around me. And I try to do it in a way that I became so valuable to people that they didn't want to leave me. Right. And that was something I had to unpack too, with all my trauma that I went through. But then I started really looking, I heard this quote that really stood out to me. It said, "I will take care of me for you if you take care of you for me." And in that way, it's always like I always talked about, putting your oxygen mask on first before you saving others. Make sure my ship isn't sinking before checking on your ship. Those are the things that I learned, that if we all just worried about us and loved ourselves to the 100% capacity, then our relationships get better, and then our environments get better. But it's when we deplete ourselves so much trying to give love to other people that we end up depriving ourselves of all that stuff. And then all of a sudden we're heartbroken. People leave and they got what they could from us. They left. Now they're doing their own thing somewhere else, and that hurts us in the process. But I learned that if I can pour into my cup as much as possible, and then make sure that this Chris is good, grown-up Chris, middle-aged Chris, child Chris is good inside me, because they all still kind of exist, right? If I can make sure that all this stuff is copacetic, everything else takes care of itself. And then people feel my genuinism when I walk into a room. I'm not here to fake the funk or like make relationships work that aren't going to work. I come in as I am, and then this is exactly who I am. And if you don't like that, then, you know, that's your exit to leave. Like, let's keep leaning into the ideas of it's okay to not be okay with certain people and their actions,
Yes.
but I don't have to be okay with them in my vicinity doing them. You know what I'm saying? Like, that vibration, it's like mud. When they're around you, it's like you just feel icky, or like it just gets really heavy on you. You have to go clear yourself. I cleanse myself every single day with sage and Palo Santo, because I know that I interact with people unconsciously that I know that could be bleeding on top of me, that I have no idea, because it's not a physical thing, it's a spiritual thing.
Yeah.
So I have to constantly be cleansing myself, because I know all it takes is one slip up for someone to get the wrong energy on me, and then now I'm acting in a way that I am not okay with. I'm going outside my boundaries, outside my character and my moral compass, if I will. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And it's so interesting that you mentioned that, because the first word that caught my attention, I really hate being around you because it just seems like our minds have linked up. It's capacity. Capacity is such an interesting thing. Like, do I have the capacity to be able to manage this relationship? And ideally, the right people are going to add. Like, you add. You don't take away, which goes back to his original point. And what's also interesting is when we take a look specifically at capacity and we assess the individuals that are in our lives, I love that you two, as young men, or really as just men in this particular society, have become so unapologetic about letting the wrong energies just find their way out the door. How powerful is that? Like, it's not even like I'm upset with you or anything like that. It's just like, you'll figure it out. You just can't figure it out over here with me. And the second thing I noticed in that capacity is that you guys are making an active and conscious effort to it on a daily basis. Could you guys walk us through a little bit about what a good day looks like? Like, how do you do that reset? You do the Palo Santo, you do the sage. Walked into this man's house before. We walked in and he was playing like vibrational music, and I was like, oh, he's different. He's different. But he talked to us about something. Something. Forgive me. I've been stalking a little bit. I've been paying attention. I see what you're doing with the water.
Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that helps?
I think when you hydrate your body on a cellular level, you are able to update your blueprint daily. Now, when you talk about capacity, you can be full of the wrong shit. Very simple. A lot of people need to just hit the update button right here, right now. People are living in like the 80s and 70s and shit.
Yeah.
Like, y'all need to hit the update button real quick, because, you know, the education, the technology, it's out there, you know. And when it comes to the water, I mean, water is the ultimate teacher at hand. Whether if it's going in the ocean, grounding yourself, doing a cold plunge, getting centered, hydrating your body, feeling clear, water is just the key, you know. So what I advise everybody I come into contact with is how much water are you drinking and what kind of water are you drinking. It's just like, what kind of energy are you taking in and how much are you taking of it in. A lot of people are just dehydrated. They're not even sick. They need water. You know, they need to hydrate themselves. And what happens is you start to hydrate your brain. I mean, we're 80% water, you know, so you got to understand a lot of people are walking around just literally dehydrated. And that's when things start to evolve into, you know, that pattern where people are sick, they get more sick, and then they actually infect more people that way too. So it's like, if we can just help each other hydrate, feel better, we could help each other all grow and feel good. You know what I mean?
How did you come across that? I'm kind of curious. What was the defining moment that told you this is something that's extremely imperative?
Yes, that's a really cool story about how he came to go in this business.
Please.
Yeah. 5 years ago, I invested in a medical grade device, and it was December 28th. A good friend of mine actually taught me about the water, and I didn't really know anything about it. But all in all, it was one of those moments where I just knew that I needed to take care of myself. I didn't know how. I was partying a lot. I was just going through the cycles, man. I was always just out in the social aspects, and I just started drinking this water. It started making me feel good. I started sleeping better, feeling better. And then I noticed that I was overall just like, I was just feeling better. You know, my energy was growing, and I started wanting to take care of myself. I went on 100 days no alcohol, and I started to realize, like, without you, nothing works. So no drug, no medicine, Palo Santo, it doesn't matter what it is. Without us, None of it works. We are the medicine. So we have to take care of our body first. And the water started really bringing that mirror effect. You know, when you put light in water, it reflects because it's a mirror, just like our eyes. It's like we have the light through the water. It's like, that's what it did for me, is it really empowered me. And I started drinking the water, and then I started helping a few people get the machines. And then it's been 5 years, and we've helped thousands globally.
He's told me that story a few times, and what stands out the most to me is the day that your life fell apart, right? I don't know if you want to talk about that at all, but I remember you telling me that you sleeping in your car, crying, praying. And I think that's such a powerful moment that we all have, when aha moments, that like in our lowest moment, then we see God the brightest or the most, and he shows us certain things that we need to go and exercise through. Like you're saying, the capacity, you could be filled with a whole bunch of other shit and still be at 100% capacity. You could literally sprint in place and go nowhere, right? If you could be the hardest worker at McDonald's and still make minimum wage, right? So like it's about direction and then movement forward, right? So I always looked at that as the same thing, is that I knew if I can get my daily thing into compounding interest over a year, because this all, for me, if we're talking about like what got me to a space of like healing every single day and like resetting, was during COVID. Because I took that as an opportunity that if I could wake up every day and do one step closer to the Chris that I want to be, while everybody else is, you know, ignoring, like going to work and then working themselves endless in something that they don't want to do, or if they're doing shit that suppressing all their feelings and their emotions, imagine how great I will be if I move one step every day for a year. And then in that space, who will I become? And then at the end of the year, I was like, bro, that's crazy. I'm not the same guy that I was last year. Like, I don't have the same triggers. I don't have the same anger. I don't have the same animosity. I'm just fully just a different person. I had to go through a lot of ego deaths. And when I was reborn, I don't even recognize the Chris I used to be. I don't recognize the Chris that was with Shrink Cartel. Right. I don't know him.
Right.
He died a long time ago.
Right.
So when people walk up to me and like, hey, oh, Topo from there, it's like, I don't remember that guy. I don't know what he's like anymore, because I've literally let that fool go to rest. It's almost like when you see Mike Tyson talking about I was a fucking monster. That was fearless. I was blah, 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 but that's not me anymore. And he starts crying. He's like, I miss him. Sometimes I miss my old self, but I know he had to die so I can become the person I am today. You know? Yeah.
I wonder if the butterfly misses the caterpillar. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Or
Like,
misses
as
the
you go
cocoon.
misses the cocoon even more.
Misses the safety of his cocoon. But yeah, if you could talk, I rambled on a little bit. If you could talk about that, I think that was probably the most powerful story that I've heard when you were like your testament to you getting in the water.
Yeah, no, and I was what came to my mind too is your triggers are your teachers. I really learned the hard way when it came to becoming the student with my triggers, because there was a time 4 years ago when I got this machine that I was living in a warehouse and I couldn't open the blinds. No one could even know that I was living in there. So it was really dark. It was really heavy time for me. I was broke. I was living for free. So in that intel, I didn't even feel like I needed to make money. It was like when you live for free, sometimes you don't feel that you need to even become better because there's nothing coming in or out. There's no purpose. You're just existing. And I was existing in this warehouse, pretty much having a good life, but low, no fulfillment. And the water came in my life right in the time where I drove out to San Clemente. This is interesting. The street that I used to live on T Street, I drove out here one night, never been to San Clemente. Do not know why I drove to this beach. I pulled up in my truck. I did not want to drive home. It was pouring rain, and I just remember getting outside and crying and just saying, okay, God, you got me here. I surrender. You've humiliated me. I completely surrender to you. Do whatever you need to do with me now. I'm done. And I don't come from a Christian background, so I don't always relate to God as spirit. I just, in that moment, I was praying to God. Like I was really feeling it. It was thunder, lightning, heavy storm. And I just surrendered in that moment. I slept in the back of my truck. I'll never forget how low I felt in that moment, where I had no one around. I didn't feel that anyone was there for me. No money, just sleeping in my truck. It's raining. I'm all wet and I'm laying in the back of my truck. And I started helping people with the water about 4 or 5 months after that, where I got my machine, was living with my homie on his couch, helped a few friends. And then literally I got enough money for me and him to move together, and we got a house on that same street. And we got a house together, and I got my confidence back where I was like, if I use myself to help others, I'm going to be able to always help myself. The art of giving is receiving, but you have to be unattached to giving. Too many people are giving with an intel that they need to receive, but when you just have no attachment to when you give, it becomes authentic, and then others just want to give and be a part of your circle naturally because they see how much you give naturally. So they naturally know if they're around you, they're going to receive. And that's what really started to come into my play, where I'm helping people with the water that were once like me. They were dehydrated, they were low, they were broke, because the business comes with it too. But the business that we're in is helping people learn that they can take care of themselves without having to be, you know, kind of victim to the rat race, which is drinking bottled water, you know, all these things that are just a never dead end road. So what was once the lowest moment of my life was, you know, taught me to actually be in surrender to myself, serve for a higher purpose. Don't just think about me. And my life evolved where we were living in a, you know, $2 million home on that same street just, you know, 5 months later.
I will say that about Torrie. He's probably the most giving person that I've ever met in my life. And even whenever we do anything, he would always be like, oh, I have to stop by and grab this gift for somebody. Like we went to the Nightmare concert, remember? And you're like, I have to grab these shoes for him. And then like giving that gift is like a ritual for you. Like it was so beautiful to have people around you that are so unapologetically giving to others, and there's no expectation of that in return. It just comes naturally because you're so solid in your energy, right? Like you're just so comfortable with just giving, because it's in order to be a giver, you have to be so solid where you are foundation wise.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like you can't be throwing things off your boat if your boat is about to tip over and you know, sink. You have to be so solid where you are in order to give to somebody, and then not expect anything in return because you already have everything that you need in you, right? So like I've gotten to that space too. That's like, how can I give what I have or what I've earned or whoever I am to others without an expectation that I can just leave everybody else's vibration higher every time I leave their space. And I think that's extremely important to be that person, because for one person that I am, there's a million others that are in the space to taking. And that's the thing, if you have a giver around you, you never know until you have nothing left. And you're like, fuck, what happened? I'm a fraction of myself now, right? But then like, if you're a giver, other givers will be attracted to you. And so then now we're in a space of we're constantly gifting each other. If it's not physically, it's mentally and spiritually. And I think that's extremely important to have every aspect of that being given or like, you know, received in like your space and your tribe. Like having a tribe that ping off each other like that we're constantly just growing together. And as we're growing, we're gifting each other. Like, you know, if you've ever been around really great people, the second that you're around them, they're like, you have to meet this person. This person is extremely well connected. I have to link you up with this person. That's what high vibrational people do. When you're with low vibrational people, they're like, that fool's whack. Yep. Fuck that guy. Like, that guy's whack as fuck. Like, they're just constantly talking shit. But when you're around really great people, they're constantly talking about the great gifts others have and how can we link you up with this person for you to win. Right?
Yeah.
That's huge.
He's been such a giver for a long time. It's something that comes innate and natural to him. A question I have for you, you just had a conversation with one of your friends. You know what I mean? And I knew that was on your mind. And you've been around this group, and I'm not trying to toot our horns, but I think that we're part of those giving circles that we're talking about. For you, when you're able to look at the dichotomy between someone who's going through a situation where they don't have that around and a situation where you do, is there a newfound sense of appreciation for that?
No, 100%. And first off, I just want to say I love all of you. I just met you.
Love you.
But it's like,
I love you too.
I love you more. You're like, in my book.
Reggie,
You're cool. Fuck you. You're cool.
No, I had to give a little bit of context. A good friend of mine who he went through a tough time at the same time that I went through a tough time, and so like, and it was very similar in what it was. And you know, you've heard this story about, you know, past relationship and things like that. He went to a very, very similar thing, and we were having this conversation of where I'm at currently and the people that I surround myself. A lot of givers, and I was talking to him. I was like, man, like, I was like, you need a. And he was talking about you because he goes to the compound.
Oh, very nice.
And he's like, oh yeah, no, I've seen. He's like, I'm just nervous. And I'm like, bro, I gotta introduce you. Like, and I talk highly of you. And I'm like, no, bro, like, he's cool. Like, he looks like, you know, a big dog. He looks like a mean dude, but he's a teddy bear. He's a teddy bear. And he's like, yeah. He's like, but I'm just shy. I'm like, nah, like, bro, like, the people that I'm surrounding myself with are uplifting me every day. That I feel, like you said, energized. I feel like I can be my individual self. I can be my giving self. I can be, who I want to be. I don't have to have this mask on that the world tells me to have. And I feel like that's what a lot of people struggle with, is having this mask, because again, we've had this big sensitization as far as you got to be masculine, you got to be this way. And it's like, no, like that's not how it should be. Like that really isn't how it should be. And we were having this conversation, and I'm like, we were there probably for like 4 hours just talking. We were at Yard House, and I was like, bro, like you have to meet these people. I was like, your situation and where you're at, you first have to, and I quoted you first have to be okay with being alone and being okay with kind of reconstructing the relationships that you have, and you have to be okay with letting go with which you said to you is letting go of the relationships and the friendships that aren't providing value and aren't providing high quality feeling. You have to let that go. You kind of just got to let, and he was like, I know I'm starting to get at that point. I was like, then continue pushing at that. But then at the same time that you're doing that, you have to be okay with now being alone, spending time being alone, and doing things that, you want to do and enjoying those on your own. And I've quoted this to multiple people. Like I've quoted the whole alone thing that you talked to us multiple times. I've quoted it to multiple people, because again, that's something that I had to go through. That's something that you went through. That's something that you went through. And as well, even from what you just told us right now, that you went through. And within that basis, I told him, I was like, after that, bro, like you're going to be so okay with letting people go that don't mean, that aren't adding value. People that are trying to come in and add negativity to your life, it's going to be easier to let go. But then you're going to attract so much more people into your life that are going to actually provide value to it. You're gonna wake up every day and be like, man, I'm grateful for knowing these people. And that's literally for me, like I'm always grateful whenever I talk. It's gonna sound a little weird, but like I get all giddy because I'm like, man, Reggie's this, yo, G's this, you know what I mean? And even talking about you, I'm like, he was talking about highly of you, us walking down here. I'm like, okay. And the minute you walked out the door, I was like, oh yeah, no, Chris was right. He's right. He's a cool dude. You're like, you're dope. And I was telling him this, and I'm like, and that's why I was like, I'm gonna bring him around. I was like, I want you to come into this group, and even if you're here for a season, that's fine. Even if you take this in, at least you're taking something positive to where you can go ahead and push that out. Because I feel like we live in this world where it's just a bunch of negativity. It's like you have a lot of positive people that are in very negative groups, and it's like it's getting so diluted. That's why I have so much love and appreciation to where God has put me currently now. And it almost, and I've never would have thought I would have said this, but it almost makes me appreciate for the fact that I went through the season of life of battling through what I had to battle through, for the fact that we had this conversation, that now I am in this specific seat next to you, sitting, talking about just how to be better men in front of other big dudes that I love and appreciate. And it's like, I'm telling him this, and he's just like, man, and he texts me he texts me later that night, and even this morning, he's like, I appreciate your friendship. And I'm like, wow, like, I love the fact that I'm actually able to provide some sort of insight onto something and make him feel like, wow, this world isn't the shit. And it sucks because he genuinely feels that he does not deserve to be loved. And he said that himself. He's like, I don't feel like I deserve to be loved, because my last relationship, infidelity and all that. I'm like, you've now had this thought into your mind that you believe what you're believing because of the people that you're surrounding yourself with. You're going to constantly believe that unless you get yourself out of that, unless you learn to push yourself past it. I'm like, bro, I need to be there for you. I need to bring you around these good people, because the thing that I would feel ill about is knowing that I didn't do my purpose, which I love what you say as far as like your purpose is to help people. Your purpose is to save. Your purpose is to provide constantly, to give without having the bare minimum of even asking. You don't care about what you receive back. For me, I don't care if you give me something, if I give you something. I always give without an intention of getting back. And for him, I would feel so bad at the fact that he lives this life just feeling like he doesn't deserve to be loved. And that sucks. That really does suck.
You know what I was going to say right now is it's because you were patient with him. You were patient with someone who wasn't having someone else be patient with them. And patience is love. You turn that pain to purpose. I've been really embedding that in my brain. Pain to purpose. You take your pain and you bring it into purpose. You probably had someone be patient with you, whether it was your mom or your dad, right? Was your mom or dad patient with you?
All the time.
Okay.
Still, they still are.
Exactly. And that's why you're able to give him that patience that he didn't receive. When someone loves you, they're patient with you. But that is, in my opinion, that is the art of love, is evolving, right? You talked about the cocoon and the butterfly. That's evolving, takes time. Anything that is something that we represent with appreciation, it's because these trees, they took time to grow. Like that's why we appreciate them. So I think with what you're talking about is you truly were patient with this man who needed that, and God used you as that. And that's amazing, honestly.
Also listening to that and how your friend let the action of somebody else affect them so bad that they feel worthless in themselves, right? So we put so many eggs in a basket of how people actions perceive our worth. And that's something that I had to go through too. I think we all have to as an adults, and becoming like a really good man, you start seeing that you kind of look at yourself and based on how people have treated you, right? But we all know that the way people treat you is only a reflection on what they've been through, their traumas, their suppressions, all the things that they're emotionally battling is a reflection on what they're going through. And a lot of times we take that as a reflection on who we are. And that's the horrible part about it, is that when you heal from all that stuff, you get to a point that you realize that that isn't the value that you actually are. It's only the value which they see themselves in that light. And then that's what I would hope that your friend would understand one day, is that I'm much more worth than what I've been treated like. I'm not what I've been through. I am exactly where I am, and everything that happened to me happened for a reason, so that I could be questioned and the things that happened to me, so I can figure out the answer, which is that isn't me. That isn't what I went through. I'm so much better and more valuable than what happened to me, right? And I had to go through that too. Like, my self-worth was shit because of the things that I had been through, the things that people said about me, whatever, just because I endured. Right? This guy isn't worth anything because his lady didn't love him enough, so she cheated on with somebody else, whatever. That hurts people. That's a common thing that fucks people's heads up, right? And so if we can get to a place in healing, especially with men, because that happens a lot more than we'd like it to happen, right? Women cheating on men like that in a weird space. So if we can get to a space that we can let guys feel more vulnerable in a way that they can heal themselves and realize that we can be much more than what we think people think of us. If that makes sense.
It totally does.
Mm-hmm.
One of the more interesting things is I think that we 1000% need to focus on exactly what you're saying in regards to self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when did we start allowing people to affect how we felt about us?
Kindergarten, probably.
Bro, and the
100%,
problem
yeah.
is it was before we had the ability or the mental fortitude to be able to thwart that type of integration into our lives. That's a good chance to use the word infiltration.
Yeah.
That's real infiltration, is from a very young age, before your barriers are tall enough
Right.
and strong enough and fortified. People will come into your lives. Environments will even be placed in front of you as to which you will start to degrade your own self-worth. And then you begin to rely on others to determine that self-worth. And that step back, please make sure you focus on that. Like, bring him around. We're here for him. But when he spends that time by himself, it's so crucial. In the car, Chris referred to it as the slingshot, right? They need to be pulled back, and they need to have that moment where they're in the car and they're really battling with life and they're asking God for answers. They need to have that moment before they can truly be propelled forward into what their actual purpose is. I don't know much about much, but I'd like to believe that. I'd really like to believe that. If you look at any amazing individual, man, female, whoever they are, however they identify, you will often find that in their life, somewhere in the past, there was some type of situation where they had to overcome a struggle almost entirely, if not fully, by themselves. And it was something that when you ask them about it, they have a little bit of a hard time telling you. Something they may not want to bring up all the time. They do because they want to provide a lesson, but honestly, if they could leave that in the past, they'd leave it in the past. But what we can't neglect and leave in the past is the lessons that we learn from that. That's one of the most interesting things about this life, is that the hardest things you go through actually provide the most lessons.
Exactly.
So true. Wow.
100%. That was
So
a gem.
true.
Yep.
Damn.
I wish it was different. I really do.
I do too. I
You
do
know what I'm
too,
saying?
bro. I do too.
But how do you even you can't even get to a place of selflessness if you don't first be selfish and learn to put your mask on first, right? We can't even get to a place where we're being of service to other individuals until we first fill our cup back up. It's so imperative. And then we can start to focus on progression, which is what I'd like to talk about next. I love what you said in regards to making sure you're of service to people and how that affects you. There's an old quote where a gentleman said, "My rent here on earth is my service to others." We don't even look for anyone to be able to give back to us. We just understand that we're paying our just dues by just doing for others. It's so imperative. Sometimes we don't even do it consciously. You don't even do it all the time consciously. You do it sometimes consciously for sure. But sometimes, Chris, just the way you are in your vibration, the way that you pour into others, I don't even think you recognize what you're doing. So I want to say thank you, because I think we forget in these moments to give people their flowers before they're gone. Not that I want you to leave anytime soon. But I just have to say thank you, because I don't even think this would have happened.
No.
We would have never
No,
met.
I've never been here. Do you guys? No. But
It's,
yeah, go on. Yeah.
it's like, it's what I talked about earlier. There's pushes, but there's pulls. And when you're truly of service not only to others, but to yourself, those individuals find their way into your life. And I think that's powerful. So thank you.
Well, I mean, there's not an accident that all 4 great people are sitting here, you know, doing this right now, is because I think one of each of us had made a decision in our lives, right? That we were going to be something more than what we were. And when we did that, the universe repaid us by putting like-minded people in our circle. Like I said, remember when we first met, it was because you saw me bench pressing 365 on incline, was like, this guy's strong as fuck. Let me go talk to him. And you had no idea who I was. And then you turned around and saw me. I was on the TV at Metroflex, and you were like, who the fuck is this guy? And I just ran away. I was like, nobody. And I just like ran away, right? Like, you didn't know who I was. So it was so genuine in that moment that the universe brought us together over commonality, which was lifting. And so every one of these moments that I've had with you guys wasn't an accident, right? There were moments that you guys gained my trust that normally like people wouldn't, right? Like we were in moments of like, not even despair, but in moments I could see your character shine through. And in those moments, you guys took a certain place in my mind and my vibration that I'll trust the people that you are till the wheels fall off. And in that moment, because I've decided that I will be a catalyst for the light that other people have in their souls, that will constantly put you guys in the positions to win with me, right? And if it's not with me, then I will set you up with someone else that will. And I think I made that decision a long time ago because I started understanding the macro understanding of the universe, and that our energy, our vibration is the universe's currency. Like, they don't understand money. Like, me throwing $1 in the sky is not like the universe being like, oh, thanks for the payment. Here's some good things happening, right? No, it's like me. I go out there, do something nice for you, even in the smallest bit, sends like throwing a pebble in a lake. Sometimes the pebble makes a small wave, but soon turns into a tsunami, right? That thing is constantly growing. So I think the universe, every time you do something amazing for somebody, or if you're in a group of guys like this and the vibrations is really high, the universe has no choice but to put great things in your life, because you're propelling an amazing positive energy. If we just looked at the world in terms of energies, the negative pockets of energy just constantly are recycling back bad energy. You know, like if we go to the hood or a barrio or something like that, it's constantly bad things happening because there's constantly bad things happening, and it's attracting more bad things in. Then we go to a great neighborhood where there's a lot of people with a high vibration, or like just a tribe of people that are just doing great things with themselves. Like, then the universe constantly is recycling great things back into that life, into everybody's lives. So I got this understanding, and I was like, it's not about money. It's not about materialistic things. I could not have anything, and I'd still give everybody everything. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And in that way, I've done that. Even the days that I was broke as fuck and I had no more money left, and I decided to give what I had to somebody else so that they could be a slightly bit comfortable. And I knew that the universe would always take care of me. And if I fell down, it's because it's not over. I know that I'm going to pick myself back up, and the universe will reward me again for the great things that I've done. But I knew that if I stayed around a certain people that were constantly in that low vibration of life, then I was going to constantly be recycled back into that bad way of life living. So having that conscious decision, be like auditing my circle and being like, I don't like his characters. I don't like the characteristics that he has and what he does, and how he'll screw people over, or he'll talk badly about this person and then be smiling in front of their face. I started seeing these characteristics in people that I didn't want to see in myself, because I felt like I started to become the people that I was around. Was idolizing girls, demonizing girls, like treating them like shit or whatever, like having a lot of girlfriends, whatever. That stuff started like becoming normal for me. And in that vibration, I became aligned with the people that I was with. So had to make that conscious decision. I prayed God. I said, if you get me out of this situation, I'll always give you back the glory once I make it on top of the mountain. And every step of the way up there, I'll give you glory. But once I'm there, good or bad, like you said, whether it's good or bad, I'm going to give glory back, because that's my appreciation, is my payment to God and the universe, to make sure that I know that when I receive back again, I will give that back to someone else who needs it more than I do. And at the end of my life, when I get put down into the floor, that will be my legacy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's like Chris threw good deeds into the wishing well
Dude.
instead of quarters.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
I'm trying. I genuinely, when people, because I hate when people say they're good people, like, I'm a good person. But when I say that shit, I'm like, I wake up every single day and I make the conscious decision to be the best person possible. You know what I'm saying? I audit my fucking, what I'm saying, how I'm talking about people, who I'm with. Like, I'm constantly auditing what I'm doing to make sure that if this was my last day on earth, that I could be proud of the man that I was, and that I know that it's not documented, but I know that the universe will show my kids in the ways that I can't right now, that I was the man that they could be proud of.
Yeah.
Right. So during the break, we were kind of discussing different modalities that we use for healing, and I just am coming off a weekend like on a high. I was at the Light the Fuse retreat, and one of the modalities that we used was medicine. And so that's one thing that me and Torrie have always talked about. I remember when the first time we talked about it, I hadn't done nothing.
Yep.
And I was so intrigued by it because, well, I'll keep it real. I've done like a little bit of mushrooms, and that would knock me off my alignment. And more of the times than not, I would come back in a better alignment than I was before. But it took me kind of expanding my brain and then realizing that maybe I needed a little shock to like get me out of that funk, right? And I watched a bunch of veterans this weekend talk about, well, not even like purposely talk about their story, but be confronted by the things that, were breaking them. I want to use one example because I already asked the guy if I could talk about it on any podcast, as I did, because it was a very sensitive subject. But this guy was just like, if you just look at someone, you're like, don't really think anything crazy. I'm not being disrespectful or being mean about the guy, but it's like, when you hear about war stories, you think about Captain America and like whatever. This guy was just an older guy, just like I would never say like I thought he was like a hero or anything like that, right? But we're sitting there and we're doing is it combo?
It's called hape.
So the one with the poison frog though.
That's called combo.
So we're doing combo. So like they burn his leg with a light or a lighter, and they press it into his thing and it burns him. It opens his flesh, and they scrape this thing with like this frog poisoning on it, and they put it in there. And apparently, like, you go for a fucking ride, right?
I mean, yeah. If you look at my arm right here, like that's from combo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like those are dots where they burn you, and then they take the skin of the frog and they insert on each burn, and then the bacteria detoxes you. It makes you sick.
Yeah. So it purges you, right? So like we're sitting there, and since I was with one of the supervisors, I wasn't allowed to do it because they were scared that it would fuck me up and I wouldn't be able to do the things I came to do. Yeah. So I can only do the hape and then the drops in your eyes.
Oh, you did those
Saranga
too?
or whatever it is?
Oh, yeah, I've done that too.
Okay, so I did those two. But in this moment, this guy is doing this combo, right? And then we have to take like little rags and dip it in cold water and then put it on their head because it makes you really hot. And then all of a sudden, he just, like the whatever the shaman, whatever she was, healer, just asked him, like, how are you feeling? And he's like, I feel like I'm hovering over this group right now. Like, I'm looking at you guys from a different point of view, but I can't hear nothing. And so she like leans in a little bit more to that, and she's like, okay, well, have you ever done any work on like a helicopter? And he's like, breaks down, right? And so I know this woman was probed to say that because it was going to draw something up. Me and Vince look at each other like, oh shit, what's happening? Vincent Vargas, he's the guy from the Mayans. So I was in the tent with him while he did it too. But so we're sitting there and I'm like, oh fuck, what's going to happen? Like this guy's kind of losing his shit right now. And he's like, tells his story, and he's like, 12 years ago, I was on a helicopter with 8 or 9 Navy SEALs, and I was with one other medic, and we're about 100 feet in the air, and this guy gets sniped. The helicopter gets sniped. Boom, he's out. The fucking helicopter turns over. This guy was a medic. He's done like something wild. Like it was like 18 tours in Afghanistan, which is just like crazy. Like that's a lot, right? And so he's telling me this story, and he's like, okay, so then this helicopter turns over and it's coming down. I'm one of the only guys that's not belted up because I'm a medic. I need to be able to like jump out the helicopter and like, assess the guys on the ground. He said that when it came down, he got thrown from the the helicopter like 100 feet or something like that, and just like completely like shattered everything. So then in its moment though, he didn't realize that he was like fucked up. So then when it crashed, he said that the people that came to the crash told him that he was trying to run towards the helicopter to pull the guys out, because they were all like his best friends and stuff like that. So he's like crawling and he's like trying, they had to fight him to get him on a gurney. And so that to me showed his character. But from this crash, everybody but 2 people survived. So everybody in that helicopter, the second it hit the ground, everyone died. 2 guys survived, and they killed themselves a year later. These 2 guys. And he's the last one. So he's legitimately the last survivor of this plane crash. And he has never talked about it. He was upset at himself for talking about it, which I thought was the craziest thing. Me and Vince were like looking at each other and we're crying. Like it moved me so much because you could tell, you could feel it was so real for him. And like he didn't want to talk about it, but for whatever reason, this healing modality brought it up. And then she probed with that question. He needed to say what was going down. And then so like on the second combo, like he says this and we're like fucking sobbing, like, whoa, that is so heavy. And then so they do the second combo and he gets very angrily aggressive because he was mad at himself for speaking it out loud. Because these guys have been put in positions that you're not allowed to talk about this stuff. And he felt like he was in the wrong for even speaking about this situation. Yeah. So I remember watching him and then looking at him, I could see the anger in his eyes. And the teacher, the shaman or the healer was just like, lean into whatever you're feeling. Just feel it and then release it. But then while I was sitting there thinking about it, I was like, man, this man might have just saved all these guys in this fucking tent right now. And when I'm telling you this guy was an introvert, like he would not talk to anybody. The whole time we were doing things for the camp, he was by himself in the corner, not speaking to anybody. So for God to platform him in this tent with some pretty high level people, like we were all like pretty successful men, I walked away from that so changed in such the highest vibration way, because every single problem that I've ever had that I thought was trauma for me became so minute compared to what he had been through. It gave me so much perspective on, dude, you've been babying yourself over these situations. Have you ever been in a helicopter crash? Have you had to watch all your friends die and burn to death and pulling guys out of the helicopter as they're burning, like, and then have to deal with the suicides of the survivors, and you have to question yourself, why was I the one that survived? He was sitting there asking himself that. He said he hasn't spoken a word about this for 12 years. This is the first time he's ever spoken about this. And he pulled me aside after we were done, and then we talked. We talked about it, and I was like, man, that God let you survive for you to tell this story. You're going to be a light for somebody, dude. Like, you might not see it right now, but you probably saved my life, Vince's life, all these guys' lives that are sitting here listening to what you endured. And it's not that you're lucky. You had something here for you left. Mm-hmm. There was a reason why you were propelled from that helicopter. I'm sitting here telling these things. And to watch a man be lifted off the weights that have been holding him down for so long is such a blessing. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, people idolize me because I've lifted weights. But the most weight I'm proud of lifting is the weight of the trauma that I had on my shoulders. And that's made me the strongest human being that I've ever would have thought it would have been. So to see people get into spaces that is so uncomfortable, and then when you respond in the way by releasing, is so powerful. And it's hard for me to explain it in the way that it's so powerful. That's why I want to talk about it with you too, is because those moments of aha moments. I'm in the business of aha moments, and I've never been in a tent with somebody. Well, I really not in a tent with nobody, but to be in a tent with men that are all having aha moments at the same time was so powerful. Like, I could cut the electricity with a fucking knife, dude. Yeah. And I feel like everybody needs to go through something like that because they don't know what they're suppressing, right? Right. So and your experiences, like, I feel like you are aligned with me because we're looking at each other and I can see in your eyes you understand what I'm talking about. Like, to be in that healing modality and then watch just physics itself just like altering. You're just watching people change. Like, their faces are kind of looking a little bit different. They're like, they don't look as heavy. There's all this trauma that was released, and then you kind of think like, man, if everybody could understand that if they were to put themselves in an uncomfortable position like this and then heal from the things that they've been through, they could be the absolute best version of themselves, you know? So did you do the combo, or did you just do, well, because you've done everything, right? So are you okay with talking about that?
Absolutely.
So what was your most, because we've talked about the one in Arizona with the guy, what was one of your most profound healing modality sessions that you've had?
Honestly, it was actually without even doing any medicine at all. In Sedona, Arizona, I have a shaman. His name's Rogelio. He's a native Indian healer. He's been in Sedona for over 30 years. My grandpa, who passed away, actually brought me to him. And we don't do any type of medicine before entering the sweat lodges. So he has a sweat that he's built, an adobe sweat. It'll get up to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, like actually 200 degrees. And you are purging out all the things that you need to release. You're chanting, you're praying to Grandmother Earth, Grandfather Fire. Like you're praying to the earth, and you're asking for it to forgive you. And those are some of the most profound moments. Like I always like to say, real friends heal friends. Like we are supposed to heal each other together. So, you know, eight of my homies, we go every year, or we go into a sweat lodge, and we are chanting and crying and purging and burning out these things that need to be released. Again, water, healing, we're releasing. And not a lot of people do this. But I've done everything down the totem pole, from Mother Aya, the top, all the way to the bottom. And, you know, even with Aya, ayahuasca is the number one thing that it teaches you to do is surrender. You cannot fight it. And if you try, it will just work even harder. It will literally put you in the place, face down into the ground. I remember when I did ayahuasca, you know, because you drink cups, right? And we drank one cup. I felt it kind of coming on. I was starting to feel things. Things were starting to move on the ceiling. It's not all about like psychedelics, but you really start to internalize things. You hear things. Things start to just energetically become more enhanced. And the shaman, his name's Jared the Jaguar, he came up to me. He says, "My brother, are you ready to take it further?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am. Let's do it."
I'm so ready right now.
I was like, "Yes, I am." And he gave me my second cup, and that second cup just smacked me in the mouth so bad. I remember I was laying down, and I started hearing just thousands and thousands of what sounded like butterflies. And I looked down, and I realized like I'm in a cocoon, and all these butterflies are landing on me, and I'm like evolving in this moment, not like physically seeing them, but energetically feeling that's what's happening. Like Aya is a very eternal energy that you take, and it makes you start to feel things that only you could feel and understand. And we did it in a group setting where there was 12 people, so it's a very vulnerable space. And again, the whole point is to purge. So we all have buckets, and there are shamans, like you said, and there are like little aids where they're gonna come up and make sure you're okay when you do it the right way. And literally we're purging. So the point is to throw up. The first night I did it, I threw up and I felt better, but the second night I couldn't throw up, and I felt like it wasn't going to stop. Like it was like an 8-hour ride, and I wanted it to stop. I literally was at its mercy. Like, I surrender, please go easy on me, please. Like, you're talking to yourself in reality, but you're like giving yourself what yourself needs, which is to surrender and release, purge. And that's the whole point of ayahuasca.
So what do you think that we purge, like when we throw up? What if someone's listening, like what kind of ideology comes behind that? Are we trapping trauma that's in our body, or like spirit? Or
I think you're releasing the humility that you're holding in, and you're not falling in love with potential anymore. You're knowing that you've just went through a process that you love. Like you come out of it knowing that you went through something, and you respect yourself for going through it. Right. I do believe, like, yeah, you're purging out like energy, but you're respecting yourself. You believe in yourself. Like, you don't just do ayahuasca if you're not really ready to face the fucking fear. Like, that's the ultimate gift, is to face, overcome, and then know you overcame that.
Right. If you could take the self before you did, ayahuasca or any healing modalities, you could take that self and just take him and put him right here. If the person that you are now, so the person that you've done all these things, all the healing modalities, and now you're in a much better space, what are some things that you would tell that person?
I would tell all of us again, we are the medicine. That was the message that I got. Ayahuasca can't work without us. That was what I really understood. I was like, wait, we're the medicine. Ayahuasca is a root of a tree, but it can't work without us. Like, we are the ultimate gift and the ultimate, present moment to give to anybody. Like, without us, none of this matters. Like, we are here to serve, and it's a fact that none of this will work without us. It doesn't matter what you do. You could do bad medicine and tap into that frequency, or you can do good medicine, but none of it'll work without us. We're the ultimate medicine. It doesn't matter if it's ayahuasca or, combo. Like, without us, none of this works.
I like you say that we are the medicine, because I think there's a lot of perspectives in the world that try to say that, and then they just say it in different ways, like be your own hero, or you're the only one that has a solution for your problems. And that's almost in the same concept, right? Like, we're looking for all these answers, trying to have things fix us, people fix us. And when it's actually, we're the only one that has the answer for our problems. We have the exact key that unlocks our trauma, that unlocks our potential, that actually evolves us to the next level and the best level, or whatever level that God wants, whatever mark he wants us to hit. We have the answers for that. We're just trying to find everybody else and try to find answers some other places. I feel like that's a beautiful thing. I think we are the medicine. I think we're sick and we have our own medicine in us, and that we could heal ourselves, and we could become the people we want to become without anybody else and anything else. But I think those medicines help us find that, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's the headspace changes. We're so unlocked in our conditioning from being a child, that we can't look outside the car and be like, oh, it's so beautiful out there. We think that everything inside the car is all there is. You know what I mean?
I think what we were all talking about too is, like, we need to keep seeking discomfort. That is where we are going to continuously find the best version of ourselves. It's when we get comfortable, is honestly in any realm. I love watching animals hunt. I don't know. I mean, I grew up as a hunter, but think about the animals in like the kingdoms and the plains that get comfortable and just take a nap. Yeah, they die that day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're like gazelle, you get to lay down for a little bit. That lion's gonna come eat you. They don't get to relax. So you have to always be on the go, always be pushing yourself. And this is where we're gonna continuously again find the truth. And every time I get comfortable, I remind myself that I like the version of me who's seeking discomfort. We respect that, right?
It's so powerful. This is what's really interesting about this particular aspect of life. We were talking about it off camera, and it's such a sucky thing to say, but discomfort is the solution. You are 1,000% correct. If you do not search for adversity in your life, you will almost definitively have a harder one. There's an old saying that says, easy choices, hard life, hard choices, easy life. What it does not imply is that when you make hard choices, life gets easier. What it does imply is when you make hard choices, the hard choices don't become that much harder anymore.
You become stronger.
You become stronger. And through that, there is a realization of self and a realization of the world around you. Unfortunately, it also opens your eyes and takes the glasses off, as you like to refer to it, right? The rose-colored glasses. When those glasses come off, you start to see people for what they truly are. But you need that self-reflection and that introspection in order to be able to do that. And that introspection does not start until you start to push yourself. And I said this, I really wish there was another way. I wish there was, but there's not. And it's hard to, talk about leading a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. How do you tell somebody to go through hard shit to change their life? You know how difficult that would be to pitch? Bro, if that was your offer at the meeting, I'm leaving. But people have to find it on their own. Your friend, he has to find that on his own. And it's interesting because I don't know that you can specifically go into any type of medicine. Correct me if I'm wrong, looking for a specific answer. You just need to go into it understanding the adversity that comes with it. And then you need to allow it to take its course. And then you take what you're supposed to be given. There's a humility in when you take those medicines. Is that how that works?
You walk in open to the change. Like, you have to walk in open-minded, because you could go through all that shit and still come out the same exact person, right?
Yeah.
But it's the intention. I feel like life is all about intentions. As I kept getting better, kept raising my vibration, I was like, oh, my intention determines my vibration, and then my vibration determines my environment, because that's what is attracted to me. And even then, I'm being attracted to go different places. I was attracted to set this up. We have to do something with this. We have to do this. We have to figure out a way and then put the message out. We have to make sure we're helping people. Like, that's not by accident. Like, this is an attraction. I might have texted it, but this was already in the plan. I'm just executing.
100%.
Yeah, and you said tribe early, and Chris has always been honest about this soul tribe. He's always been honest about the energies that you receive based off of your output or what attracts you to like-minded individuals. Like, in life, you're always going to have yin and yang. There will always be a positive and a negative force, but what you can do with that positive force is through your work. That's really what it is. Through you doing the work to become a better version of yourself, other individuals who are on that same path will find you, right? My mother sent me a quote the other day, and she said the best way to find a healthy relationship is run as fast as you can towards God, and anybody who's running at that same speed will keep up with you and be on that journey.
I like that.
And that's
like
not
that.
just in that. That's with Mother Earth. That's with yourself. I would imagine, and I'll be honest with you, my relationship with spirituality and religion is a constant growing thing, and I'm willing to admit that I don't understand many of the intricacies of how it works. But one thing I have figured out, or one thing I'd at least like to believe, maybe let's be more humble and say that, is I'd like to believe that whoever God is or whatever God is, even if it's partially myself, would encourage me to continue to search for that adversity, not only to help myself grow, but to put that light over my head, like you said, and help other individuals around me. And thus expanding my capacity, because I'm expanding a narrative. And the narrative is, together we can go extremely far. We just have to know that this is going to be a journey. We have to enjoy every second that we're on it. We have to search for the things that make it difficult, because that's what's meaningful and valuable. And at the very end of it, if we don't help somebody along the way, was any of it really worth it?
Right.
Fire.
My biggest fear, genuinely, is to be the person that strives for success, strives for purpose, and then at the end, I'm giving a speech, and I'm like, you guys have to enjoy the journey. That's the one thing I didn't do. Like, that is one of my fears, to have to make that speech sitting in front of young people being like, I did everything right, but the one thing I didn't do was I wasn't present.
Yeah, I would hate to get to the end of this and not remember how any of it happened, or not at the very least and have enjoyed it. Like, could you imagine? This guy scared the shit out of me one day. He came into my office and sat down, and he was getting a wire transfer. And for anyone who doesn't know, that's how you get large deposits of money into your account or send them out. And he was getting this deposit for $40 million. Oh, just this gross amount of money. Just this gross amount of money.
What was that?
And I was like,
I get like one or
me, bro, dude, seriously. And me
My
and,
wire number. Hey.
me and my young self, I was so ecstatic for him. I was so happy. And then all of a sudden I became ultra selfish. And I was like, tell me about this process. I need to know because I have to get there. I have to get that $40 million deposit. And he leaned across the table and scared the fuck out of me. He was like, I missed everything.
No fucking way, dude. He said that for real?
He missed time with his family. He missed the soccer games. He missed time with his wife. He didn't even enjoy building the company. He missed the entire journey. This man was distraught, and through that distress, he was angry. He had malice in his heart for what he had done. As a matter of fact, he had malice in his heart for what he had not done. He did not enjoy the process. And it caused a very rude awakening within my life. I had to reassess where I was going, who I was going with, and whether or not I truly was enjoying the process that I was on.
Your intention.
My intention.
Crazy, dude. I can't believe he leaned over and said that shit.
Bro,
that would have changed me completely.
Doggy.
If he would have said it, just leaned over and said it.
And I
missed everything.
I needed it, Chris.
I can't
needed it.
imagine.
He was supposed to be. I'm not
Holy
trying to say everything's
shit,
supposed
dude.
to happen for me, but I feel like he was placed there for me. I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
I needed to know that and understand that. Life will get you a lesson. Even if you don't want that shit, it'll get it to. It's up to you to listen. Don't get me wrong. But life has brought me lessons that I was not looking for.
Yeah. For real.
When you were in that tent, you were not looking for that lesson. When
Right.
he does his journeys, he's not looking for specific lessons. Part of the journey is relinquishing control. I'm not saying you shouldn't try and make good decisions. But what I am saying is when life comes at you, you need to embrace it for what it is. That's the true beauty. That's the true art in this world, is you have no control over anything except yourself. And sometimes you don't even have control over that.
Yeah.
And people will refer to that as scary, terrifying. It's all of that. Yes. Yes to that. Be afraid. Go out in a thunderstorm. Cry, feel, breathe, embrace the emotion that comes with it. And then you can make the change and influence the direction of yourself. And if you're lucky, there'll be a few badass motherfuckers who are willing to go on the journey with you.
I'm a true believer in you kind of are born into who you're supposed to be in your life, but then the conditioning and the things that happen through life will pull you from your alignment. I think part of becoming the best version of yourself, you have to heal from those parts of the things that happen in your life that condition you to act a certain way. I think, but when we're first born, I feel like we have all the tools that we need. If we were to stay away out of trouble that whole time, and then just only do the things that helped us grow, then we would blossom into exactly who we're supposed to be. I feel like becoming a high vibrational person or becoming your best version of yourself is almost going through and picking away the things that off tracked you in the first place. So like you're like literally going through your whole past and you're trying to decipher and unpack these traumas that have happened to you. Like we talked about, I have this weird what's the word, abandonment issue because of my father, right? I talked about that. Like I'm okay with like confessing that and saying it to the world because I know it can help somebody else. I had to sit down and really unpack that and be like, I have abandonment issues because my dad would say things and then not fulfill what he was saying, and now I don't trust people. And when they show me that I can't trust them, that triggers me. Like that is like a fucking thing that is it irks me, like that's like my pet peeve, so like knowing that, and if I can go and find out every behavioral thing that I find that there's a problem with, if I can find out every single root issue why I'm doing that and what I did to protect myself in those situations, then I can learn how to maneuver it. But if I don't know it exists, I don't know how to heal it, right? And I can heal that part of me, like knowing that my dad was going through stuff. That's why he didn't show up at my games. Understanding the perspective of it will change my triggers because I'm not blaming anybody else. I'm taking full responsibility of where I am and where I'm sitting today. And I think a lot of times we won't take responsibility. We blame others. Well, fucking my dad beat my ass when I was a kid, so like I fucking have an authority problem. Like, no, you're putting that shit in your dad, and then now because you don't take responsibility for that action, you can't change. You've let them have all the power and the things that they've done to you. Like, understand that you can cut the tie and then take responsibility for the whole situation, and that only gives you the power to make change.
I said this the other day, responsibility is control. If you do not accept responsibility, you cannot have control.
Exactly.
People run from it. They run from it. It terrifies them. And I understand that because I've been there too. As a matter of fact, I still have moments like that. Like, I think it's really fair that we acknowledge that there are moments when we slip as well. We are imperfect beings. We were not created to be perfect. Our imperfections are arguably perfection. But in those moments when you can truly embrace and understand how you affected a situation, that allows you to move forward with such grace and such control because you have decided that the outcomes are directly predicated on your outputs.